And I told you that Jada was addicted to. So how Jada would watch at the house is she had her laptop, she would stick her hard drive in, right? Boom, and hook it up to the TV. Being around Will for 38 years and Jada for almost 3 decades, I saw a lot of things that I believe to be criminal.
If you expect to be with somebody forever, ever, it's like, let's get real with it from the gate, you know?
For years, the public believed they already knew everything about Will and Jada Smith. Their relationship had been dissected, debated, and turned into memes so many times that it felt like there were no secrets left to uncover. But then, something unexpected happened. A statement surfaced that immediately changed the tone of the conversation. This wasn't another awkward interview clip or a carefully rehearsed explanation. It was an admission that felt raw, unfinished, and unsettling. The kind of statement that doesn't answer questions, but instead creates far more of them. Suddenly, old rumors that were once dismissed as internet noise started to feel less ridiculous. People who had defended Jada for years began to hesitate, and people who had laughed off the stories started revisiting them with a very different mindset. This moment didn't explode all at once. It spread quietly, almost uncomfortably, as clips resurfaced and past interviews were re-examined. What made it even more disturbing was how calm everything sounded, as if these revelations had been hiding in plain sight the entire time. This wasn't framed as an accusation or an attack. It felt more like a crack in a carefully polished image, one that had taken decades to build. And once that crack appeared, it became impossible to ignore what might be hiding behind it. But that was only the beginning, because the more people looked back, the more they realized that this story didn't start recently at all.
That was now the time.
Well, I felt like there had been, and still is, a lot of missing pieces to my relationship with Tupac, and I know that there's a lot of intrigue around it.
Jada has been snitching on herself for years. From drug dealing back in the day to constantly cheating on Will, and now threatening to murder someone.
When people began digging deeper, they didn't have to search very far. Jada herself had been talking for years. In interviews, podcasts, and memoirs, she often framed her past as a story of honesty and growth. She spoke openly about her early life, her struggles, and the choices she made before fame fully hound her. At the time, many praised her for being brave and transparent. But in hindsight, those same confessions started to look very different. What once sounded like accountability now felt like a pattern. Each revelation normalized behavior that most people would never casually admit on camera. Over time, these admissions stacked on top of each other, creating a timeline that was hard to ignore. Instead of distancing herself from controversy, she seemed to lean into it, almost daring the public to keep up. The problem wasn't just what she admitted, but how often she did it and how little responsibility seemed to follow. Every time a new story came out, it was framed as misunderstood, taken out of context, or unfairly judged. And yet the details never stopped coming. The more people connected the dots, the more it appeared that this wasn't about growth at all. It was about control of the narrative. By saying everything herself, she stayed one step ahead of anyone else who might speak. But eventually, that strategy begins to backfire, because when you say enough over time, people start noticing the contradictions, and those contradictions led directly into the most public humiliation of all.
Everybody talks about you all the time.
Right.
You know, just lots of rumors and tabloids and all of that. And you were very careful in the book, not in a whiny way or whatever. Let me clarify this.
Right.
Let me clarify these things that have been said. And one of the things that you are careful to clarify is it was never an open relationship.
Thank you. I'm glad, yes. It was
a transparent. You say it's a transparent relationship. And what do you mean by that?
So transparent meaning, look, I wasn't going to fool myself into thinking that we as 20-some-year-olds, babies, mind you, getting married and living in Tinseltown, spending a lot of time apart, okay, that we weren't going to run into temptation situations.
You're young, beautiful, rich, temptation.
Right.
You're apart a lot. Temptation is raining down on
Right,
you. Yeah.
exactly, right? And I'm like, hey, we got to be in partnership with this. Like, I wanted to face it head on and just go, I didn't want to create a culture of deceit or betrayal between us. And I just wanted to be real about it from the gate. I had seen so much just with, I knew what street fame brought dudes, okay? I knew what street fame brought. And I'm like, if street fame does that, I can only imagine what global fame does. And from me, my own experience walking into rooms, all eyes on me, and how intoxicating that was as a young woman. You know what I mean? It's like I had been there and done that, you know, in regards to my earlier years before I met Will. But I just knew that I just wasn't going to set myself up that way. But it was never an open marriage, you know, and like either one of us get to do whatever we want to do. That was never the case.
As you say in the book, it's about eliminating the possibility of betrayal.
Yeah.
If something happens or you want it to happen, talk about it.
Absolutely.
Which is the healthiest way to go.
Listen.
Because it happens to everybody.
Listen, if you expect to be with somebody forever, it's like, let's get real with it from the gate, you know?
What happened on Red Table Talk wasn't just a viral moment. It was a turning point. When Jada sat across from Will and calmly explained her relationship with August, the internet froze. The word she chose instantly became a joke, but the impact was no laughing matter. This was not a private confession. It was a public dismantling of a marriage that millions had admired. As Will sat there, visibly uncomfortable, the power imbalance was impossible to ignore. What shocked viewers wasn't just the admission itself, but the way it was delivered. There was no remorse in her tone, no hesitation, only explanation. When pressed further, the story shifted, becoming clearer and more damaging with every sentence. What began as vague wording turned into a confirmed relationship, while Will was left trying to piece together his own reaction in real time. The moment felt rehearsed for one person and devastating for the other. Social media exploded, not just because of the betrayal, but because of the public nature of it. Many began asking why something so deeply personal needed to be shared at all. Others noticed that this wasn't the first time Will had been placed in this position, and while the couple insisted they were stronger than ever, the damage had already been done. But what viewers didn't realize at the time was that this humiliation was only the surface. The real concerns were growing quietly behind closed doors.
The sexual things they were doing allegedly to certain people and all that. And I told you that Jada was addicted to So how Jada would watch at the house is she had her laptop, she would stick her hard drive in, right? Boom, and hook it up to the TV, and she could play whatever video she watching. So now, I'm seeing videos of her and Will and a bunch of some celebrities, everything. Because remember, the last interview I told you, if you don't sue me, I'm gonna let people know who you've been hitting with them dildos. I don't know if you remember that, but I remember. Your wino's gonna remember it. And I said, if you don't sue, I'm gonna sue. So I told you, being Muslim, whatever I say I'm gonna do, that's what I'm gonna do. Period. And I gotta have evidence. So we not playing. That's why they didn't sue. So back to these discs with all these this homemade was on it or whatever.
As more voices began to speak up, attention shifted away from interviews and toward the home itself. A place that should have been private, stable, and safe suddenly became the center of disturbing claims. A former close associate stepped forward, not as a gossip, but as someone who claimed to have witnessed things firsthand. According to his account, what happened inside the house went far beyond marital problems. He described an environment that felt chaotic, inappropriate, and deeply unsettling. These weren't stories about arguments or disagreements. They were claims about behavior that allegedly took place openly, without regard for boundaries. What made these allegations even harder to process was the implication that children were present during moments that never should have happened in a family home. Looking back, people began reanalyzing old interviews with Jaden and Willow. Their discomfort, their unusual comments, and their early desire for independence suddenly made more sense to some viewers. Things that once felt quirky or misunderstood now felt like warning signs. While none of this had been proven in court, the consistency of the claims raised serious questions. And once those questions were asked publicly, they couldn't be taken back. Because at that point, this was no longer celebrity drama. It was something far more serious, and it was about to move into a courtroom. When legal language entered the conversation, everything changed. The former associate wasn't just talking anymore. He was filing paperwork. A lawsuit demanding $3 million shifted the entire situation into a new category. Suddenly, were massive. As observers watched closely, one question kept coming up again and again. If none of this was true, why hadn't it been shut down immediately? And just when it seemed like things couldn't escalate further, new claims emerged that took the story in an even darker direction.
Put out an interview with Will Smith grabbing Alfonso Rivera, squeezing his nipple and trying to put his finger in his. Jada responded to the first global interview that I did with you.
That was a global interview.
Yes, it went all over the world.
It was in Arabic, I saw it.
Yeah, it's India, everywhere. I talked for 2 hours.
Okay.
And I said some pretty, what some people may think to be outrageous things, but I knew them to be true and had the evidence to show that it was true. That's when Jada responded out of anger, not out of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Because for her to be a global iconic superstar, you rushed to the Breakfast Club to say, number one, that, I extorted you, there was a money shakedown. You said you didn't have all the facts. So that puts you in legal jeopardy right now. You said all the facts will come out. None of the facts came out. Now you, Will, and yourself are in legal jeopardy. Her lawyer sends me a cease and desist letter, which I had to report him to the bar. Kenneth B. Hurts, because he said I never knew Will, that I never worked for Will, and that he said he represented Willard Carroll Smith, which is Will's real name, but he was asking me to take down statements from Jada. So that's what we call in law overreaching. You cannot, if you're saying you represent Will, you can't compel me to do something against Jada,
okay.
Right? So I already knew that I had him legally. So I said, okay, I got y'all. Now, once that happened, there was another interview, of course, when she came outside and reiterated that she was suing, right? And there was another interview with TMZ just after that where one of the cameramen asked Jada, hey, Jada, have you seen Will with any men before? And her answer was no. So now that's a lie too, because I put out an interview with Will Smith grabbing Alfonso Rivera, squeezing his nipple and trying to put his finger in his. After that, they reached out to me through many people, one being Charles Austin, AKA Charlie Mack, the federal informant. He reached out to me through a friend. From my understanding, allegedly, it was Will and Charlie.
According to the lawsuit and subsequent interviews, legal conflict wasn't the only response. There were claims of intimidation, warnings, and pressure delivered behind the scenes. The associate described moments where he felt watched, followed, and deliberately targeted. These weren't vague feelings. He spoke about specific encounters that left him genuinely afraid for his safety. At one point, he claimed he was directly warned to stop speaking or face severe consequences. Whether those claims can be proven remains to be seen, but the seriousness of them cannot be ignored. He even described a violent incident that left someone close to him permanently injured, an event he believes was not random. As shocking as these allegations were, what stood out most was the timing. They all came after he refused to stay silent. To critics, this looked like retaliation. To supporters, it looked like desperation. Either way, it pushed the story beyond Hollywood and into territory that demanded investigation. This wasn't about reputation anymore. It was about safety. And as fear spread, more names and connections began surfacing, linking this situation to other powerful figures from the past. As investigators and internet researchers dug deeper, familiar names began appearing again. Connections from the early 2000s resurfaced, along with stories that had once been whispered and quickly forgotten. Allegations involving recordings, private gatherings, and blurred boundaries started aligning with what the associate had been claiming all along. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Other high-profile cases were unfolding.
We're at a birthday party that I think either Matt Damien was giving for Ben Affleck. It was just a little gathering. It was at the Four Seasons. Will Smith and his sister and her husband, we were all sitting on this side of the room. Matt Damien, Ben Affleck, Jennifer Lopez, Puff, Will Smith, and Jada, and it was sitting on the other side of the room. So I know Puff so well that he stood up. When he stood up, he walked and and did his own some kind of way, and then he went like this, like that. I went over towards him. I know to go over there towards him. So I go over towards him, and he said to me, he said, "Yo, I think Will and Jada is trying to scoop up Jennifer. I want you to stay close, because I'm going to snuff him." I said to myself, Will Smith gonna beat the shit out you. No, Puff could scrap now, but I don't think he could beat Will Smith. You know what I'm saying? Well, he could scrap. You know what I'm saying? So then he said that shit. So I didn't go back over there where Will Smith's sister and her husband was. I stayed about, if he snuffed Will, I could move slow enough that Will could probably get 2 or 3 punches back in. Yeah, but that's funny. He thought that Jada and Will was coming on too strong to Jennifer, making.
You heard about this sex tape that's being shopped around, a Diddy and another male? They say the other male is an A-list celebrity.
I would wonder if he's white or black, and if I'm looking at any black guys that are A-listers that's bigger than Diddy, is only one that I could come up with, and there's a few I could come up with. Will Smith, he's bigger than Diddy. I would think Nick Cannon is bigger than Diddy. Who else on the black that are black actors or black in the business that's an A-lister that's bigger than Diddy, that's black? That's hard to think. But then if you got the A-listers, you got to realize he ran with that black that Rat Pack, and I don't want to even say their names because they said I got their names wrong last time. What's his name? Kushner. What's the other guy? Leonardo. Yeah, his name. Man, I don't keep up with these cats, but I heard that that's not only the tape that's being shot. There's some other tapes out there, other people too with him, and him doing some things with some other people. So it's quite a few tapes that might be out there, what they're hearing, and I don't want to see the tapes, but I want to know if they're really true.
At this point, the story can no longer be dismissed as gossip or celebrity drama. Too many pieces have aligned. Too many people have spoken. What was once sold as radical honesty now looks like something far more complicated. Decades of interviews, admissions, and carefully managed appearances are being re-examined under a harsh light. The lawsuits, the threats, the alleged evidence, and the growing public scrutiny suggest that this is far from over. Whether the courts ultimately confirm or deny these claims, the impact is already irreversible. The image that took years to build is cracking in real time. And once people start asking the right questions, there is no going back to silence. This isn't just about a marriage or a scandal anymore. It's about accountability, power, and what happens when the truth refuses to stay buried. What comes next could reshape how this story is remembered forever.